Hey, Joseph, good work here in week two. Want to send you a quick video reply. I appreciate you sort of capturing the concern that Paul has here with judgment and then nuancing what is meant by judgment here. And I try to get at that by thinking of it in terms of ruling over one another. And I think this is really important to tie to something that you wrote about in the first forum, which is Paul's concern with what we might call outward signs. I think something in the podcast exposition that I describe in terms of credentials. And the issue there is the tendency to utilize something about how our lives are presented to one another, visible and measurable to each other as a claim to authority, as a claim to the kind of moral high ground or the right to rule over others. And as you say, I think very well here in the second forum, this is not some problem that's unique to Paul's immediate audience. He's addressing something that is perennial. And I think it's especially perennial where we have some expression of God's revelation guiding us. So there are always ways in which human groups claim to be able to rule over one another, and then members of groups doing that. All of our communities and societies are characterized by hierarchy. But what Paul is addressing, I think, even more specifically, although that's involved, is God's law. For us, we might think of it in terms of the Bible, the way that we might conceive of the Bible in the way that Paul's audience, some of them at least, seem to have been conceiving of God's law, namely as a basis for measuring themselves as faithful, obedient, compliant, righteous by the measure of the law. And we might do the same by the measure of the Bible, whatever we say it means to be truly Christian, these kinds of things. And the issue is not that everybody is the same. It's not that everybody, has committed exactly the same sins or something. The point is that God's revelation is not about being able to elevate some of us over others. That whatever differences we have in moral responsibility, in background, in sins that we have committed, uh, these are not differences that constitute a basis for us to judge one another as rulers. Whatever we're going to do to govern ourselves, to negotiate conflicts, to distribute power, it is going to have to be in a way that is mindful of our shared need for God's judgment, for God's gifts. This has to inform how we go about sharing power, governing our life together. That I think is the key that Paul again is going to unpack in the rest of the letter. So just want to try to pull those two things together because I think you're onto something here in both response forums. Thanks again for some good work in week two.